All right, our next lesson in Unit 7 on logs and exponentials is actually a lesson where we use exponentials with a real-world application. We're going to talk about compound interest. As opposed to simple interest, which is only paid or calculated one time, like when you purchase something. If you go to Walmart, you buy groceries, you buy even a pack of gum, clothes, whatever. You will always pay a simple interest based upon whatever the rate is. I think right now in North Carolina it's 6.75%. But banks, credit card companies, savings accounts, retirement accounts, those kinds of interest payments are not just simple. It's not like you leave it in there, boom, you get interest one time. As long as you continue to leave money, they will actually calculate interest multiple times. And so it may be like a lot of savings accounts are monthly. So at the end of the month, you may get an extra interest payment added to your money you already have in there. So the next month, you're going to earn interest again. Only instead of it being on the original amount, it's going to be on the new amount with the added interest. So you're going to be getting interest paid up on top of interest. So we call that compound interest because it will accumulate and accumulate and accumulate for a period of time. First, let's start by understanding what the letters stand for. A is the amount. Okay, it's the amount you're calculating, and what we're doing is we're actually calculating how much you're going to have in there with the interest added in. P stands for principal, and it's not the principal. It's not spelled like our principal at our school. It's spelled like principal, which actually is the starting amount. How much money are you putting into the account? $1,000, $200, $25,000. Whatever the amount is, that's your principal. R stands for rate or interest rate, okay? So it might be the rate of interest. The one thing you have to do is you must change the percent to a decimal. So change a percent number to a decimal number. Now, just to refresh on doing that, for example, if I wanted to change 7%, 7 is actually has an unwritten decimal after the 7. So I'm always going to move it 2 places. So I'll jot that down. So we're always move the decimal 2 places to the left or back 2 places. Always exactly 2 places. So if I take my decimal that's unwritten and I know it's behind the 7 and I come up once, it's in front of the 7. If I come up again, I have an empty spot. So there's going to be my new decimal, and I will fill in the empty spot with a 0. So that would equal 0.07. 0.07 is the value that I would actually use in my calculations. So always change your rate of percent, or your rate of your interest from percent to a decimal. Sometimes this is called the APR. So on credit card statements, they'll talk about APR, which is your annual percentage rate for that duration of that card. A lot of credit card companies charge you a high interest rate for using money when you don't have it and you're buying it on the credit. Okay. Conversely, if you have money and you put it in the bank and you let the bank use your money, sometimes the interest that you draw is only 1, 2, 3, 4%. So it's not exactly fair, but it is the way it works. Be cautious, be cautious, be cautious of getting yourself into credit card debt as you go into the future. Okay, N. N is sometimes one of those hard to explain things, so let me make sure I'll try to do the best job I can. N is the number of times in a year interest is calculated. All right. Remember we said this is not simple interest. We're going to actually calculate interest in a more regular basis. We're going to add that to it. Then you're going to continue to draw interest on that new amount, add that to it. Continue to draw a little more interest on the new amount, and add that to it. So N is the number of times in a year that interest is calculated. Number of times in a year interest is calculated. All right. If you get interest accumulating daily, some credit card companies will take your annual percentage rate. They'll break it all the way down into a daily rate. And if you buy something, they may charge you a little bit extra interest every day that you have made that purchase and that you have the credit. Yes, they can actually break it down to a daily rate. All right. If you do daily, daily would mean they're going to calculate every day of the year. Every day of the year would amount to a number of 365 days in a year. So I would use an N value of 365. If they calculated interest weekly, Every week, at the end of the week, they would add my interest or calculate my interest. That would count to, in a year's time, 52 times. Annually is only once. Quarterly. Quarterly, I want you to imagine quarters in a dollar, or think about quarters in a dollar. There are 4 quarters in a dollar. There are 4 quarters in a year in terms of financial times. A lot of big corporations pay taxes quarterly. Most regular people that have jobs, they pay taxes once a year, April 15th, but most corporations will pay taxes quarterly because they earn large sums of money, and the IRS is wanting to go ahead and get that tax money on in there. So every 3 months. So every 3 months, they have a quarter. The next 3 months, second quarter. The next 3 months, third quarter. And the last 3 months of the year is called the fourth quarter. So it's 4 quarters in a dollar, 4 quarters in a year. Yearly is another word like annually, one time a year. Not too many things I can think of do yearly, but it's possible. A lot of things are monthly. Maybe your savings account gathers a monthly amount of interest. Semi-annually, which monthly would be 12. Semi-annually and biannually are 2 words that specifically actually talk about twice a year. So every 6 months, boom, you get interest. The next 6 months, boom, at the end of the year, you get your next interest payment, but that only happens twice a year. All right, the last letter is T. T stands for time, and it's how much time that you're going to allow this money to calculate the interest. So it may be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but it's always a yearly amount. So time is always calculated in years. Okay, so we have our compound interest formula. We have our P. P is open parentheses. You go 1, 1's built into the formula, plus. Then you have R over N. N times T is an exponent. A lot of times we may call this, the Roy needs new tires formula. Roy needs new tires. Roy needs new tires. It just seems to be a nice, easy way to remember, because you do have all of these letters. R over N, and then N times T is your exponent. Roy needs new tires. Or maybe if you're thinking basketball, Roy needs new Tar Heels if they have a bad game. But sometimes we will affectionately call this the Roy formula. It's just to try to come up with something to remember it. Okay. All right, percentage, or calculating the amount. Let's just jump in and see if we can calculate one. Try one. All right, as we read the problem, $25,000. If we're trying to identify that, is that a P, a 1, no, not a 1, P, a R, an N, or a T? That is my P. That is my principal starting amount. $25,000 in a savings account earning 6.5% interest. That is my rate. So I'm going to have to use that as my R. But what did we say in our notes that we have to do with our R? The rate of interest must change to a decimal. Always move the decimal place 2 places to the left. So I'm going to take the 6.5 and I'm going to go back once in front of the 6, back again with an empty spot, fill it in with a 0. 0.065 is what I'm going to use for my R. All right. Compounded quarterly. Compounded quarterly. Now, where did we hear that word quarterly? That's when we were talking about the N value. So as we look at the N, okay, we do have a note here. It says the N value will change from problem to problem, so you have to look for words. So that word quarterly comes up. So how often are we going to get our calculated interest? 4 times. So that means that I'm going to have to know, and I'm going to have to catch the fact that that word was quarterly, and that's my N value of 4. How much does the account have in 3 years? That is my time, or my letter T. So the first thing is to go through your problem and make sure that you understand what it is you're working with and identify all of your variables. I think I'm ready to now. What we just need to do is plug and chug. I want the amount of money that I will have in 3 years. So I'm going to type in my principal amount. So 25,000 is written next, parentheses. Then it says 1 plus. So I'm going to put the 1, the plus. Then I have an R over top of an N. Okay, so I write my bar. My R number is 0.605. So put 0.605 there. Notice that it's changed to a decimal. Over N. When I read the word quarterly, I figured out that my N value is a 4, so 4 goes in my bottom, close parentheses. The next thing is I have these are exponents, so make sure you do the up box, and I'm going to repeat the number N. which is 4. Notice that n is the only number in our entire equation where I have it written twice. So I have an n down here and an n up high. So I have to repeat, the 4 comes in 2 places. And it's multiplied times the time, and the time is 3. Now at this point, I want you to put it all in the calculator at one time and calculate the interest in one time. So everybody get your calculators ready. All right, I guess I'll move it over here so we can see it. Okay. All right, so we're going to type it in exactly the way it looks on our screen. Let me clear everything out. Okay. I'm going to type in 25,000. Okay. Then I'm going to open parentheses, 1 plus, then it's going to be 0.065, so 0.065. Then it says over 4, which is divided by 4. Then I'm ready to close my parentheses, and now do the up box. Now, on your newer calculators, you now have a little up box. I don't have that, so I have to use parentheses. 4 times 3 can be typed in just like that. Or some people might want to say, oh, I know that's 4 times 3 is 12, and they'll just go up box and put a 12. All right, if we've typed everything in correctly, we all should get the same answer. So check on your calculator that you got the same thing as what I got. The answer is $30,335. Now, take notice, is that going to be 18 cents? Or am I going to get the benefit of 19 cents? Well, the number past it is a 9. So as long as it's a 9, I'm going to be able to round up. So my answer is $30,335.19. Let me double check that that was correct. $30,335.19. That should be the amount of money that you get when you type into the formula. So compound interest, not too difficult. It's mainly a formula. You got to know what the letters stand for. You got to know how to substitute them in, and you got to know how to plug it into your calculator. All right, you now have an assignment on the back of the worksheet that has these problems, and these are actually, I kind of cut and pasted and then I whited some stuff out. So this was something different, and I put monthly on number 12, which is your number 2. Number 3, it says daily. You're going to do the same thing. Apply the formula. Let's just get started with the first one. 7,300 is my principal starting amount. 7%, move the decimal back 2 places. So I'm going to use that as my R, and I'm going to use 0.07. Compounded semi-annually. That's a word I have to remember. How many times a year is semi-annually? Remember, that's my N value. Semi-annually is 2. Okay? So I know my N value is a 2. So you're looking for a word to help you with your N value for 3 years. 3 years is my time. I'm using the equation that says amount equals principal 1 plus Roy over needs new and tires. That's how I remember it. Roy needs new tires. I will give you the equation. Now let's see if we can plug in. So let's see if we're successful. The amount that we're looking for equals $7,300. Open parentheses. 1 plus, so the 1's built into the formula. Rate on top, 0.07. N value on the bottom, which is 2. And then up high is going to be 2 times N times T, which is 2 times 3. If you want to multiply and make that 6, you can. All right, let's see if we can calculate it and get the correct answer. So we're doing a second one. 7,300. Uh-oh. Let's see. There we go. See if I can get it to work. There we go. Just has a minute when it's paused. 1 plus 0.07 divided by 2, close parentheses. Don't forget to go up high, so do the up arrow. Okay. You have a box. I don't have a box. I'm going to do 2 times 3, close parentheses. Yours probably stays 2 times 3 in the up box, and it should. If we did it correctly, we should all get $8,973.56, or would that 3 make it 57? Nope, just 56. $8,973.56. All right. Now I'm going to show you. You need to finish this page. I did take it up. So this sheet here, these 10 problems, we actually did it partly in class, and then we opened and finished it in class on Friday. All right. Let me show you what I have. I have all of the problems, and then here's some matching assignment. These are all 10 of the correct answers that you should have on the back of your sheet. Okay. I think F might have been changed a little bit, but I think F's pretty close. For today's assignment, I did make a change. I wish I hadn't done that, but anyway, this is a matching assignment. I noticed that my answer, $8,973.56, is letter H. So if I come back over here, I'm going to match letter H. Now, I'll take it back one more time, and you can check your last, you can work the problems and then check to see if you can match all of your answers. All right, here are the answers to the back side of the worksheet. I did double check everything on this page is correct. It should match the back side, the 10 interest problems you have. So pause the screen, keep this screen up. You should be able to match one for one. If you don't find your answer on these answers, then chances are there's something not quite right with either the way you've identified it. Either your end number's wrong, you moved your decimal the wrong number of places, or you typed it into the calculator wrong. So this is a calculator lesson. Pause this screen if you need to, and go ahead and do your homework, and then come back and see if you can match. Just like we matched this one. We worked it out, I have an answer, and I matched it to choice H. All right, last time, you can pause it on this screen.